All right, folks, welcome back. We are live. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, Bleacher Report Live, and we are talking about the Rams today. We're going to be getting into it. Before we do, just want to let you guys know at any point, if you enjoy this, you enjoy what I'm giving you, you can follow me on the Bleacher Report app at JK Bogan, as well as all social media on at JK Bogan. I have a Rams channel as well, so any of you that are interested in the Rams, I would assume everyone, since you guys are watching a Rams stream, you can check that out. Jake Ellenbogen channel on YouTube. Let's dive into this. So, the latest with the Rams, and obviously, we still haven't had the Super Bowl yet. So, there's going to be a lot more coming down the pipeline. But currently, the Rams, they had a coaching raid. A lot of teams are interested in the Rams coaches. Newsflash, that's not anything new. But when it comes to the Rams this year, they're going to be without Raheem Morris, defensive coordinator. He's heading to the Falcons. The quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator, Zach Robinson, is also joining him with the Falcons. Assistant head coach Jimmy Lake is joining the Falcons as well as the defensive coordinator there. So he was in the running to potentially be a defense coordinator for the Rams. He is moving on to the Falcons. So clearly they were not going to make him such. Assistant special teams coordinator Jeremy Springer is newly he was newly hired by the Patriots this today. So that's news, right? So Springer is gone. They are keeping, I mean, I don't want to say too much, but they're keeping Chase Blackburn after the sixth worst special teams unit in the history in the NFL. So it's not great. Springer was there, the year prior with Joe DeCamillis. They moved on from, but Springer goes to the Patriots to be their special teams coordinator. Also, the Rams lost defensive line coach and running game coordinator Eric Henderson to the USC Trojans, and passing game specialist Jake Peets is interviewing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the offensive coordinator job. So right now, it's pretty much the same. This is how it's been. The Rams are getting plucked. There's a lot of different coaches that are, Sean came out and said, look, this is a team that, I like this coaching staff. I want to bring everybody back. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. He did also say that it really depended on, these guys getting new jobs, these guys getting promotions and so forth. So that also, matters. But really what it comes down to is that it's once again another year, the Rams in the spotlight. Goes to show you how important those compensatory picks are. Getting a third rounder for Raheem Morris this draft is going to be huge. They'll also get a third rounder next year, for Raheem Morris. And, they might consider, bringing in another minority hire at defensive coordinator. If teams are just going to continue to take all the Rams coordinators and, assistant coaches, it makes sense in that regard when you're going to lose a guy anyway. So just talking about it real quick, not going to get too into it, but I do have a projection for the coaching hires at the Rams, replacements, if you will. Defensive coordinator, I think it's going to be Denard Robinson. I could see Brandon Staley. I really hope not. I don't think Brandon Staley did that well with the Chargers. Obviously had the number one defense with the Rams, but I actually credit that more to the personnel that he got to work with. But as far as defense coordinator goes, Denard Wilson, former Ram, was there from 2012 to 2016. McVay, ironically, didn't bring him back onto the staff. So, Wilson went to the Jets. Then, of course, he went to the Eagles and he went to the Ravens. Back-to-back years with the Ravens and the Eagles, number one secondary in the league. Defensive backs coach with the Ravens right now. Would bring in the Mike McDonald defense. I like the influence there. So I like Denard Wilson. He's one of those guys that's really trending upward in the coaching circuit. I don't have a passing game coordinator, but quarterbacks coach, I think, is going to be KJ Black. He joined through the Bill Walsh, minority coaching fellowship. And KJ Black is well liked. He was working with the quarterbacks this year as the assistant, offensive assistant. And so now I think this is a perfect time to promote him to be a quarterbacks coach. So they could go with, an older guy. They could go with, somebody like a Byron Leftwich. They could go with a Brian Johnson, who is current, formerly the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. They could also go with Greg Olson and have it be his fourth time being with the Rams. But, I think that they will probably promote from within in this position here. I got KJ Black. Assistant head coach, I feel like this one's obvious. I feel like it's going to be Joe Barry. It was Joe Barry from the beginning when Sean McVay became a head coach. Joe Barry lost his defense coordinator job to from the Packers. I don't expect him to get another defense coordinator job. Could be a linebackers coach, but I do think he'll join the Rams as an assistant head coach this year. Could be wrong, but I can definitely see that. Another thing I can see is defensive line coach being AC Carter. Carter is an assistant defensive line coach. Eric Henderson left. They could go out and get a defensive line coach whose contract is expired. Sure. But lateral moves, aside from that, are going to be a little hard to come by. I think they'll promote from within with AC Carter. So that is that with the coaches. I'll have more when, more comes up. But right now, Jake Peets, pass game specialist, one of the favorites to be the passing game coordinator. Sounds like they might have to brace for losing him too. This is just the way it is. When you have Sean McVay, you have a great culture, you have, consistent winning. This is what happens. Teams want a piece of it. And so you lose your coordinators and your assistant coaches every single year. It's nothing new. So let's talk about the free agency, because looking at what you see right here is ourlads.com, a good site if you ever need to get a quick depth chart on a team. This is the Rams depth chart as we see it right now. Going from quarterback and beyond, let's just start here. Matthew Stafford and Stetson Bennett are the only quarterbacks actively on the roster. Now, with that said, these are the futures. So these are reserves. As soon as the league year starts, these guys will revert onto the 90-man roster. The roster, of course, expands from 53 to 90 men. So when that happens, quarterback Dresser Wynn, who you can see right here, is going to move up into this spot. Now, again, he would have to make the team and everything, but for the 90-man roster, he would be on the roster. So they would have three quarterbacks: Matthew Stafford, Stetson Bennett, and Dresser Wynn. Here's the thing. Stetson Bennett, I don't know if he's ever going to play football again. Okay. So because of that, this is a question mark. Fourth rounder in 2023, the worst pick they made. And to be honest with you, this was a great draft. So I'm not even going to hold it really against them. I don't think they could have foreseen what ended up happening there. And again, we don't really know what happened. We just know he's not playing. He's not suiting up. He's not on the roster, all of that. So Bennett is a question mark. Stafford is a lock. Sean McVay made it very clear. He's bringing back Stafford. They're bringing back Stafford. He's going to be really upset if they don't. What can you say? Matthew Stafford in one game against the Lions, in the playoffs, looked like potentially the best quarterback in the NFL. You don't move on from a guy like that. He checked all the boxes this year. He answered all the questions. Matthew Stafford is here to stay. Carson Wentz, he's listed in gold here, orange, gold, whatever. He's listed in orange here. And the thing is, as you can see right here, unrestricted free agent. Carson Wentz is going to be a fascinating tale here, because I do think right now you can feel good about 18 to 19 quarterbacks, maybe even 20 quarterbacks out of 32 that are locked in for 2024. Okay. So that leaves, right, if you're thinking 20, that leaves about 12 starting quarterback positions that are a little bit, that are open. Like Daniel Jones, is that open? I don't know, right? Justin Fields, I don't know. Kirk Cousins, does he come back to the Vikings? I don't know. So I think right now, just the question mark, you have over 12 different quarterback options, maybe even 13. Does Carson Wentz get a starting gig? Does he want to do something like a Baker Mayfield did, with the Panthers? He was with them. Sam Darnold goes there. They battle it out. Baker wins the job. Does he want to compete for a job? Does he have to sign knowing he has a job? Or is he fine being a backup another year for the Rams? Now, it's worth mentioning here, if he were to, be a backup and say the Rams don't want to pay him, John Gruden, who worked with him, throughout the offseason and during the season, quietly became the Saints, a Saints consultant, if you will, to work with Derek Carr. He also worked with Carson Wentz. So don't be surprised that Carson Wentz does go over there. Jameis Winston is a free agent. He could be in play. Gardner Minshew could be in play. To me, the backup quarterback spot, I'm going to give you the best fit for each position. We'll go through the depth chart and I'll give you the best fit. But I think it's Carson Wentz, and I think it's not even really close. As far as, you look at PFF and they have the rankings here for quarterback. I mean, you see Kirk Cousins here. That's not an option, obviously. Ryan Tannehill's interesting because he gives you that veteran, leadership, can come right off the bench. He's won big games before. He played games at the end of this year and gave, the Titans a shot in some of them. He's more of a game manager at this point in his career, but this is definitely an interesting one to look out for. And that price there, I think Wentz might be a little bit more than that because he's younger. Keep in mind, Tannehill might, he's going to turn 36 this year. So that remains to be seen. Baker Mayfield is a starting quarterback in the National Football League, no doubt about it. I don't see him being an option. Gardner Minshew is now a Pro Bowler. Does this raise this price? I don't know, but I think his agent was doing backflips when he was announced as a Pro Bowler. What does this mean? Well, he's 28 years old. He's started a lot of games. He could be a decent option, but are you going to be able to pay him that much money or even more? I don't think so, to be a backup. So I don't know if he's much of an option there. Jacoby Brissett. I mean, when he plays well. I mean, that's just really what it comes down to. He's 31 right now. 6.5, is that too much? It was too much for like a Baker Mayfield coming into this year when the Rams didn't have a lot of cap. Now this year, you're looking at $128 million in 2025, which gives them leeway, to move money around and make restructures and things like that. They can get up to $70 million, so something to keep in mind. Also, Jameis Winston, as I mentioned, could be an option. 30 years old, $4 million 1 year is the projected contract by PFF. They ranked all of the free agents. They didn't rank everybody. Wentz isn't on here. Wentz is on Spotrac here, which of course he right here, 1.3 million was his deal. So I think Wentz played well enough to get a contract. Now there are other guys that weren't mentioned, like, Josh Dobbs, Easton Stick, I think is, an interesting option. Does Joe Flacco want to come back, for cheap and still play? I don't know. I think Teddy Bridgewater's retiring. Tyler Huntley is a little interesting there. Sam Darnold is another one that's interesting, as well as Drew Lock. But I think the best option here to back up Matthew Stafford is indeed on the roster from, this past year. Won't be on the roster starting in March, but Carson Wentz might not come together immediately. Might be something where happens after the draft, after you've kind of evaluated everything, you've seen what you have. And of course, he's not available if a team wants him to be a starter. Part of me wants him to be a starter. Selfishly, I want him to be back with the Rams. We'll see what happens. Carson Wentz is the best fit in free agency. I don't think it's remotely close at backup quarterback. So moving on to the running backs here, Kyron Williams, of course, is right there. You have Ronnie Rivers, who's in gray right now. That means he's an exclusive rights free agent, which means Ronnie Rivers is going to be a Ram in 2024, barring something crazy happening. Royce Freeman is an unrestricted free agent, which means he's done with the Rams unless they re-sign him. And Zach Evans, of course, is on the roster, a guy they traded up for in the 6th round. So my thoughts here, Kyron Williams, second best running back in the National Football League. You feel great about him. However, there were some injuries. The broken hand in the playoff game. Little fluke, sure, but an injury. He's had some ankle stuff. He had an ankle issue his rookie year. He had an ankle issue this year. So you don't want to just label him injury prone, and you don't want to give up on him because he's the engine to the offense. But you want to be cognizant of the fact that this guy can wear down. He is not invincible. So if you give him 20 plus touches a game, and he ends up at 300 or 400 touches a season, I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. Like, you want to see him get through 17, not play 12 or 13. So that's something to keep in mind. How do you do that? Well, Zach Evans, Ronnie Rivers, these guys will compete. I think you got to bring in another running back. And I know there are some people that are pretty high on Royce Freeman. I am not one of those people. I think Freeman is okay. I don't think Freeman is anything to go crazy about. I think when you look at the running backs, there's plenty here. But as far as the running backs go, I have mine that I'm interested in. So we'll move out of quarterbacks here on PFF. These running backs, let's be honest here, Saquon Barkley, he's a starter. This doesn't make any sense for the Rams. Neither does Josh Jacobs. Derrick Henry, I don't know if he's going to get paid that much. That's a lot. 2 years, 20 million. If he does, then, that's starting money. I don't know where he's going to get that, but if he ended up being cheaper, that'd be an interesting option there. Tony Pollard, I understand he had a down year. The Rams are not paying $8 million a year for a backup. Austin Eckler, same thing. Down year, still not paying that much for a backup. So then I think, you go down here, J.K. Dobbins is a little intriguing, although it's like having Cam Akers again, tore his Achilles, I believe ACL actually. Either way, he had another season-ending injury. It's been injury-plagued career for him. I feel for him. He's not great in pass pro, though. And to me, if the Rams are going to go out and sign anybody to be a backup to Kyren, it's because they want to upgrade from Ronnie Rivers in pass protection. Rivers is a guy, he can throw a block, but he's not going to hold his own in pass pro, and neither is Zach Evans. Royce Freeman is solid, but you'd like better production at the running back spot if he had to be the starter. So Devin Singletary, good running back, starting quality running back, but doesn't offer a lot in pass protection. He's not a great pass protector. He's not awful, but he's not great. So this isn't a ton of money, but it is enough if he's not going to be able to come in on passing downs. AJ Dillon, good pass protector. I like 2 years, $4 million. I think that's something you have to consider there. That's a good deal he's going to be 26. The Packers kind of moved away from him, but you're talking about a 250 pound, 6'2" running back that runs a 4.5. I mean, he's a freak. He really is. I always really liked him, coming out of Boston College. But, I think really what it comes down to is if Dillon is a guy that, is fine playing second fiddle to Kyren Williams, he gives you the short yardage. He also has some deceptive speed there, and he's going to make arm tackles miss. So I think this is somebody that is interesting, to say the least. The last one here on this list is Zach Moss. I don't know why he's so low. It's probably because the injury history, because he is always hurt. But if he were to stay healthy, to me, Zach Moss at $3.75 million per year, signing a 2-year, $7.5 million deal, I would do that in a heartbeat. I think Zach Moss would be the perfect backup to Kyren Williams. Is he blazing fast? No. I understand if you want to wait for the draft, by all means. If you want to get a home run threat, I don't know if you get one here. I don't think you have one here. I think J.K. Dobbins was the closest, but after the injury, is that going to be the same? DeAndre Swift, there's not Tony Pollard, but now you're getting into starting caliber guys. So I think down here, I think it's A.J. Dillon or Zach Moss for me. I also like Dearness Johnson, who's not listed on this. He is listed over here, but I think those are the interesting ones there. Just kind of looking at this, I think Zach Moss makes a ton of sense. A.J. Dillon makes sense, and I really do like Dearness Johnson. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I'd like to see more in pass pro. I don't think he's bad. He could be a sneaky one too. But Gus Edwards is another guy that I really like. There are definitely options in free agency to upgrade from Royce Freeman. You don't have to just bring back Royce Freeman. You can get a better running back in his place. Dearness Johnson is the one that intrigues me. He's somebody that not that bad in pass pro, just hasn't gotten a ton of reps. But he is pretty solid. He's a good receiving back, and he can run. And this is somebody that had a 4.81 40 and really worked on his speed. And he's gotten to the point, where coming into the league, we might have been slow. He's not slow anymore. So this is somebody to keep an eye on, kind of under the radar. Think about it when the Rams got Lance Dunbar. That's kind of what you would see. Somebody like that, bargain bin guy, getting the best out of him. So I like Dearness Johnson there as kind of the lower option. But I would say 100% Zach Moss would be my guy that I would go with. I also really like Antonio Gibson, but I think I would go with Zach Moss. He had 794 yards this past year, 5 touchdowns, missed quite a few games, and was playing second fiddle to Jonathan Taylor when he came back. So if you can get Moss for, cheap, and to me, like $3.75 million a year is cheap, I would do it. I think it makes a lot of sense. So I like Carson Wentz at quarterback. I like Zach Moss at backup running back. All right. We move on to the wide receiver. So this is a little intriguing here. We don't know which way the Rams are going to go. I think they did see a little bit of what the future could look like without Cooper Kupp. Tutu Atwell is on a contract year. You have Puka Nacua for, a while now. So that's great. But what happens after that? Because Demarcus Robinson, who signed a 1-year deal to basically be a mercenary this year, just come in, be a hired gun, didn't get a chance until later in the season and made the most of it. I'm talking 4 touchdowns, was huge down the stretch for the Rams. Big reason why that offense started really clicking. But do they bring back Demarcus Robinson? Because here's the thing. I think they can. He's going to be 30 next year. Do they bring him back? I think they can. But will they? When you have the options that are in this particular free agency class, it's hard to say. First off, T. Higgins. Is he going to get franchise tagged? If he doesn't, the Rams might just say, screw it, and throw caution to the wind and go after T. Higgins, right? They might also say the same thing with Michael Pittman Jr. if he's not franchise tagged. Now, PFF has them both getting franchise tagged. Mike Evans is another one. So Evans is 30. So he is older, but do you bring him in to finish out Stafford's, career? I mean, $23 million, that's 3 years, 69. That's a lot of money, but he's a consistent guy. He's had 10 seasons in a row of over 1,000 yards. You bring him in, you have Puka Nacua, you have Cooper Kupp, you have Tutu Atwell. This is a guy that doesn't get enough credit, I think, when we're talking about this. Mike Evans could be an interesting little option here. He's not a bad blocker either. I think the injuries, as they say, nagging soft tissue injuries, I think those are a little concerning. This isn't somebody I think in 3 years is going to completely fall off, though. If you wanted to kind of match him up with Cooper Kupp and you bring in Mike Evans and you sign him you sign him a 3-year deal, not long-term, kind of middle of the road there. He and Cooper Kupp's contract expires around the same time. The thing is, do the Rams want to pay $23 million average annual value to another receiver who's 30? I don't know if they do. I don't think they do. So I don't know if he's an option, but it'd be kind of cool. I think it'd be kind of cool to have Mike Evans. Marquise Brown, I don't really know if he makes a lot of sense. I think they kind of already have that in Tutu Atwell. Whether they use it, I don't know. But that's somebody, $12 million a year. I don't know if that makes really much sense for the Rams. Calvin Ridley, same deal. I like Calvin Ridley. I thought he looked really good this year, over 1,000 yards, but he's 29 already. He missed a year due to, his suspension, which, that sucks obviously for him. 2 years, $32 million. I don't know if the Rams are looking at that. I think if they add another receiver, it's going to be $5 to $10 million, maybe. I'm not really a Mooney fan, so I would probably say no for Mooney. He hasn't really done anything since 2021. Gabe Davis, deep threat, field stretcher. He kind of disappears. He's still super young and he could block, but I don't know. I don't love Gabe Davis for that price. Odell Beckham Jr. This is the one, and I think they do a nice job of kind of setting the table here. First off, I understand he's 31, right? He'll be 32 at the end of the season, this upcoming season. So he'll be 32 at the end of this upcoming season. You look at 1 year, $10 million. I don't know if that's what the deal would be. That's their projected. I think it might be a little lower. But when you look at him, I think they did a great job here. Beckham progressively looked more and more like his old self as 2023 wore on. 90 receiving grade from weeks 9 through 14, trailed only Tyreek Hill. That's kind of the vibe I got. I think he was reliable this year. They're not a pass happy offense, even though it looked like that in their final game of the season. They just didn't run the ball, which is kind of weird. But could Odell come back to the Rams? I believe he could. And I think it makes sense. First off, let's just make this very clear. The Rams wanted him back. They kept his locker around. Odell wanted to come back. It never made sense. Odell's time frame after he tore his ACL, he was not ready to come back right away. The Rams were going to give him money and not know what the future held with him and his injury. Now, another thing to keep in mind, the Rams were bad in 2022. Sure, the injuries had a lot to do with it, but 5-12. So Odell decides not to sign that year. Then this year they had no money. They had to get rid of Allen Robinson. They had to get rid of Bobby Wagner and Jalen Ramsey and Leonard Floyd and so forth. So Odell really didn't get a chance, even if he wanted to sign with the Rams this year. So he signed with the Ravens. They got close. No cigar. Does he come back to the Rams knowing that the last time he was there, he won a Super Bowl? I don't know. But I think that he would like to play with Matthew Stafford again. I don't think he'd be against that. The question is, will the Rams spend the money, and will Odell come back to the Rams? That's what remains to be seen. But I like this fit a lot. Familiarity is there. He already worked with Eric Yarber, of course, wide receivers coach. So this is a guy that I heard just absolutely just great things about. The locker room loved him. This is a guy that, it's funny, people said he was a locker room cancer. That's not what I heard. So Odell is an interesting one. Tyler Boyd is an interesting one. I like Curtis Samuel. Kendrick Bourne is really intriguing to me. Tore his ACL in week 8. He might be a little cheaper than this because of that. I would really consider bringing him in. I think he's somebody that, he's really good at tracking the ball. He's a really good possession receiver over the middle, really good route runner, came from the same school as Cooper Kupp, Eastern Washington. I'd keep an eye on Kendrick Bourne. I've always kind of liked him as potentially a Rams receiver, played with, Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers at one point or another. So I could see him being a fit in this offense. So keep an eye on him. He would be right in that Demarcus Robinson role. So that's really that. But, then you have DJ Chark, you got Michael Thomas. I think Thomas is intriguing. Josh Reynolds, I would say no. Okay. I would say no. The drops actually cost the Lions the Super Bowl. Obviously more things had to do with it, but his drops were brutal. There's a reason why he's not a Ram anymore. So I would say no. Nick Westbrook-Akine, very good blocker. This would intrigue me. I'm not going to lie. Cheap option, 1 year, $2.7 million. Noah Brown, KJ Osborne. See, I like a lot of these guys. So does Demarcus Robinson come back? Well, to be honest with you, I think the best two fits in here, actually, I'll say 3. I'll say Odell Beckham Jr. is the number 1. Odell makes the most sense, in my opinion. You sign him 1 year. You're not really sure what you're doing with Tutu Atwell. You're not really sure what you're doing for the future. Cooper Kupp's kind of up in the air. I mean, he has a long-term deal, but if he has another year like, this past year where he can't stay healthy, it puts him in a weird spot. So get Odell for 1 year. I like that. Get Demarcus Robinson for maybe a 2-year. I like that. But then, last but not least, Kendrick Bourne. I like I said, I like Kendrick Bourne a lot. I would say kind of an under the radar, won't be available because he's a restricted free agent. 49ers, Juwan Jennings, 25 years old. I think Jennings would be great. John Johnson on his podcast was talking about how much, he really admires him and how high they are on him and how he always makes the big play. Would be nice to have a guy like that catching a big 3rd and long over the middle against the 49ers. So those are my guys there. We move on to the tight ends. And the tight end position, the reason why I say the tight end position, I know that they're paying Tyler Higbee. He tore his ACL. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL in the last game of the year on a dirty hit by Kirby Joseph. We won't get too much into that. But the point is, he's going to start the year on the physically unable to perform list. In addition to that, Hunter Long is also there. So when you look at these, you look at this right here, you go back to the wide receivers. Demarcus Robinson's on the team currently. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Tutu Atwell, Ben Skoranek, Austin Trammell. Down here, you'll see Xavier Smith right here. So wide receiver, they do need a wide receiver if they're going to lose to Marcus. Tight end, Tyler Higbee is going to start on the PUP list. Potentially Hunter Long, who also tore his ACL towards the end of the season. So that leaves Davis Allen. Bryson Hopkins is a free agent. I would love to bring Bryson Hopkins back. Okay. They just don't use Bryson Hopkins. So I hope he goes and finds, a team that values him. Because they don't win the Super Bowl without Bryson Hopkins. I'll just say that. So looking at this, Dalton Schultz, 11 million is way too rich. Okay. I don't think the Rams are going to go for that. They already are paying Tyler Higbee good dollar. And they have Davis Allen. So they don't need to do that. I think something like Hunter Henry makes sense. Nick Caley, of course, coached him at in New England. So if he does come back onto the Rams, coaching staff this year, doesn't get hired anywhere. Hunter Henry is a guy he's worked with before. I could see the familiarity there. I like Noah Fant. I don't like him for $9 million a year. I don't. I like that he's young. I don't like him for $9 million a year. I also don't think they need a young guy. I don't think they need young guys left and right. I don't think they need core group guys. These are like at this point, Tyler Higbee kind of has him in a weird position here. He is a little bit older and he did just tear his ACL. Hunter Long's going to be a free agent after the season. And Davis Allen is the young guy and he's going to be the starter as it stands right now if the season started today. Gerald Everett's an intriguing one. Does he come back to the Rams? I'm going to say he doesn't, but $5.5 million for a year. That's kind of along the lines I'm looking at. So I really like out of all these guys right here, like Hooper, that's a decent deal. Gesicki's decent. I like Adam Troutman. I think Troutman has, he hasn't really been utilized the way I would have liked. He's now been on his second team, Denver, and of course, New Orleans. I really like Troutman. 2 years, 4.25 million average annual. So 2 years, 8.5. I think Troutman on the Rams would make a lot of sense. You have him, you have Allen, you have Higbee when he comes back, and Hunter Long when he comes back. That's a good tight end room. So Troutman, unfortunately, Bryson Hopkins is going to be, he's 27. Troutman is almost the same age. I'd rather keep Hopkins and give him an opportunity. Again, I just don't think they're going to. But I think Troutman would be the best fit since I don't think they're going to give Hopkins a chance. Moving on to offensive tackle here. Looking at the depth chart, you got left tackle Alaric Jackson. He's in black, which that means is he's a restricted free agent. I can't see him leaving. You got Joe Noteboom. I don't know what's going to happen with Noteboom. Do they keep him on the roster? Do they not keep him? Not really sure what they're going to do there. Havenstein and Warren McClendon at right tackle. So what could they do? Well, this is a little bit of a shot in the dark, but I kind of like it. I'm going to say Tyron Smith here is the best fit if they go tackle. He's the only one I would sign because I think Alaric Jackson's better than Trent Brown. I think he's better than, I don't really think Nwenyu as a tackle. I think he's more of a guard. But the point is, I think he's better than Becton. I think he's way better than Jonah Williams. Jermaine Illuminor, Josh Jones, Donovan Smith. I mean, all these guys. Like, Alaric Jackson not being on here is ridiculous. Again, I don't think PFF is perfect. So Mekhi Becton will get paid because of where he was drafted. But in reality, I think Alaric is going to come back to the Rams. I think he's good value. I think he's good size, good athleticism, all of that. But this right here is what I've been saying, a la Andrew Whitworth with the Los Angeles Rams, where he deserves a solid payday if he wants to pursue one. I can see that. And that's why I like Tyron Smith. Smith is 3 years younger than Whitworth was when he got paid by the Rams. So if Tyron Smith just decided, hey, I'm going to roll 3 years with the Rams, $30 million to be the left tackle for Matthew Stafford. If he could stay healthy, that would be so huge. Think about that. Tyron Smith at left tackle, you bring back Alaric, maybe you put him at left guard, you move Steve Avila in at center. I think that would be huge. So Tyron Smith to me is by far the best option at tackle. After that's Alaric Jackson. You got to bring back Jackson, in my opinion, no matter what. But I think if you're going to sign an offensive tackle, it's Tyron Smith. Now, these are best fits, folks. I'm not saying they're going to sign all these guys. They don't have a cap space to sign every single position. But these are the best fits, in my opinion. Next up, we have guard. And Kevin Dotson, to me, you got to bring him back. No brainer here. They have him at 17.25 million a year. So 4 years, 69 million. Totally agree. You got to bring him back. Second overall guard this year. I want to see them bring in Robert Hunt with him. I think Hunt and Kevin Dotson are the best fits. Both played at Louisiana Lafayette. I think what you get in Robert Hunt is kind of what you get similar to Kevin Dotson. I think he's somebody that worked well at tackle, and then he got even better when he was moved to guard. So I like the idea of moving Robert Hunt and Kevin Dotson into this lineup, putting Steve Avila at center, drafting a tackle, or just using Alaric at left tackle and Rob Havenstein at right tackle. I think that'd be one of the best offensive lines in the league. But is that realistic? I don't know. Spending $34 million a year on two guards, that's a lot of money. So I don't know about that. But those are the two best fits for me. I like Reisner. I went through this. I like Reisner, Zeitler, I've gone through these in other videos, so I don't want to bore you. But these are my two favorites. And if you lose Dotson, I'm all for going out and getting Robert Hunt to replace him, because I think they're kind of one and the same. Very, very similar. I think they would both work in that. The one thing I would say is that Hunt has more experience in the zone scheme, whereas Dotson is perfect for the gap. So it's not that Robert Hunt couldn't do it, but you already know he can. That's really what I would say about that. Center. There's only one center I want. Although Connor Williams is really intriguing. He had the season-ending injury in week 14. That can make him cheap enough to go out and grab. Was the second overall center by PFF. But Andre James is also pretty solid. There's good centers. Lloyd Cushenberry to me is no brainer. Number one center. I don't know why he's rated so low. Now, with the Rams here, if you look at center, Coleman Shelton's a free agent. So it's only Brian Allen on the roster. I think they might move on from Brian Allen. He's getting paid a lot more than what he is giving out, right? He didn't really play much last year. So Cushenberry, if they went this route, this is if they keep Steve Avila at guard. I like this. If they don't keep Steve Avila at guard, and they move him to center, then this doesn't make sense. But Cushenberry, both in pass pro and in the run game, kind of a no-brainer, one of the better centers in the league. Aaron Brewer, this is hilarious. You might not realize it, but he's a 271-pound center. Not an option. He will not work in pass pro. He's good in the run game, and you'd be surprised the fact that he started so much and he's played so many snaps in the NFL at that size. It doesn't make sense for the Rams. Biotish is a little interesting, but like Shelton here, $5.3 million a year. See, I would just rather move. I'm either going all out and going after Cushenberry, which you can do because you can keep Avila at guard. But if you're going to move Avila to center, then I would just go out and get Kevin Dotson back and either draft a guy or bring in and double dip on Robert Hunt. So that's what I would say there. Defensive line, we're going to avoid here. The reason being, I feel good about the defensive line. I mean, right now, restricted free agent Jonah Williams, I think he'll be back. Desjuan Johnson was getting a lot of run towards the end of the year. Bobby Brown, obviously. Kobe Turner, Aaron Donald. So I feel good about that. Larrell Murchison is set to hit free agency. They could bring him back. We'll see, what's there. I haven't really gone too much into it. With the interior defenders, I think a lot of these guys are going to get paid. Maybe somebody like Mo Hurst here could be an intriguing option. Was the 13th overall player at the position, according to PFF. He missed the entire 2022 season, came back, played decently. He's an option to replace, a guy like Larrell Murchison. Quentin Jefferson was with the Rams years ago. He's been a model of consistency no matter where he goes. He'd be an intriguing option. Do they bring back Ashawn, Shelby Harris? There are guys. I don't know. I don't really get the feeling they're about to spend a bunch of money on interior defense line. If they were, maybe, they go out, they get one of the Ravens guys. Maybe they bring in Anthony Weaver, defense line coach for the Ravens currently. He becomes the defense coordinator and they push to get Justin Madubuike. I don't think so, but, it's one of those things that I guess worth throwing out there. Moving on to edge defenders here. So edge defenders, Josh Allen to me is a perfect fit. They have him getting tagged. I think he's going to get tagged. I think you're going to have to trade for him if you want him. However, I don't agree with this. I don't think Brian Burns is going to get franchise tagged. I do think there is a chance that the Rams could sign Brian Burns. I think there's a chance the Rams could sign Danielle Hunter, Bryce Huff as well. Although my concern about Bryce Huff, he's not a great run defender and he's kind of a pass rush specialist. So how does that work out? Chase Young, I got to be honest with you, I've kind of soured on Chase Young a little bit. Jonathan Grenard, I like him. Jadeveon Clowney, I see a lot of, PFF mocking him to the Rams. I don't really know why. I don't really see the fit there. Zadarius Smith, they're the guys. I think Josh Uche makes a lot of sense. Can drop in coverage, can, do pretty much everything. Had a down year. A lot of these guys, very, very talented all across the board, but I really like Davenport. However, I want to see them go after a big guy. So I think the best fit for them, which I know is the best fit, is Josh Allen, but I think the second best would be Brian Burns. So will the Rams end up with him? I don't know. I think he's the second best fit. I think he's somebody who is producing in Carolina, but would be producing at an incredible level in LA. That's what I will say. Next up, we have inside linebacker, and the best fit, in my opinion. And oh, by the way, with not interior defenders, inside. I just did it again. Okay, let's see. Linebackers, that's why. So looking at the depth chart here, edge, Hoyt is a restricted free agent. Hampton, 5th round pick. O'Shawn, 6th round pick. And you got, of course, Byron Young is a 3rd round pick, and Keir Thomas is a UDFA. After that, you don't really have anybody. So that's why I think they got to go out. They got to go heavy after edge. Maybe they go in the draft. Free agency, though, Brian Burns is the best option. Well, Josh Allen's the best option. I think Brian Burns is the most likely to not be franchise tagged. We'll see what ends up happening. He could very well be franchise tagged. If that's the case, it's Josh Uche, or they go with Daniil Hunter. I could see that. Moving on here with the linebackers, Frankie Louvu is somebody I really like. And I don't even know if they have him listed. Oh, they do. Okay. Blake Cashman to me is the number one. He's the best fit. Great coverage guy, good tackler, good run defender, can really, disengage from his blocks. I thought he did a great job with D'Amico Ryans. He finally got a chance. This is somebody who's had some issues with injuries. He's 27 right now. I think 2 years, $8.5 million total, I think is a great deal. I think bottom line is I understand, they like Roseboom a lot. I like Roseboom. He's a restricted free agent. I like Troy Reader. He's a free agent. And I like Jacob Hummel. He's an undrafted rookie free agent who's now, on the team. But Ernest Jones needs a running mate, folks. And if that's the case, if they need to get him somebody that can kind of do it all, Blake Cashman makes a lot of sense. There are some other guys here that I wouldn't mind, but I think Cashman is by far the guy that makes the most sense. I like Dodson here for cheap. We'll see what ends up happening. He's the 2nd overall linebacker. Cashman was 7th, but he's the 2nd overall linebacker according to PFF this year. So he's an intriguing option there. And that, I don't know. I think he'll stay because Bobby Babich was, promoted from linebacker coach to defensive coordinator for the Bills. So I think he'll stay with Babich. But if he doesn't, that's an intriguing one. Willie Gay, we're going to see him in the Super Bowl. That's an intriguing one. I still really think Blake Cashman is the best fit here. Great sideline to sideline speed, the athleticism, the cover ability, all of that. I just think he's kind of a no-brainer there. The price tag is pretty good. Alshire is solid. I don't know if he's much of a fit with what the Rams are trying to do. They could bring back Bobby Wagner. I don't really see it. Jordan Brooks is too much. Patrick Queen is way too much. Levante David, maybe. I don't really see it. Frankie Louvu is intriguing. That's too much money. So I think the best option by far is Blake Cashman for the value. I think his price is going to be higher when it's all said and done, but we'll see what ends up happening. Moving on, we have the cornerbacks here. So looking at the Rams currently, their cornerbacks, we have Kobe Durant currently on the roster. Ahkello Witherspoon and Duke Shelley hit free agency. Trey Tomlinson, and you got Darion Kendrick. Okay, that's it. Cam McCutcheon, who is a futures reserved, he'll be on the 90-man roster. Had a really good preseason as a UDFA. We'll see what ends up happening with him, but he is also currently on the roster as well. But that's it. So you're talking about Kobe Durant, 4th rounder, 6th rounder in Tomlinson, 6th rounder in Kendrick, and UDFA and Cam McCutcheon. So they have a few different ways they can go. I'm going to say this right now. There's no chance that they are going to go with Jalen Johnson. There's none. Jalen Johnson will not be available. He's the number 1 corner in the league, according to PFF this past year. Incredible season. I just don't see it. I really, really don't see it. 1 year, $18.8 million. That tells me, yep, franchise tag. PFF is expecting. L'Jarius Sneed is an interesting one there. But the problem is the price. He's going to get priced out of the Rams range, first off, and second, he is just not disciplined. 17 penalties is not acceptable. So that's an issue there. That's also not something I think you can coach out of him. He's an aggressive player. He's grabby. It comes with the territory. And now he has a reputation where referees are going to look in that direction. Kendall Fuller is probably one of the better options. And I think if the Rams don't bring back Ahkello Witherspoon, it's going to be a Kendall Fuller, that they bring in. Awuzie, if he gets back to 2021, this is a great pickup. However, I don't want to pay him $10.5 million for him to be what he was in 2023. I don't agree with this point at all. He returned to form nicely, though, because he gave up over 100 passer rating. So I don't agree with that. Stephon Gilmore is going to be 34 this year. I think he's too old. But if they wanted to go with it, I mean, 10 million a year, 1 year. I mean, he's still really solid. Steven Nelson is intriguing here. Cheaper option, veteran guy. Kenny Moore is strictly a slot corner. I don't see the Rams going after that. Adoree Jackson, I don't really see it. And Keyshawn Nixon, I kind of can see, because 2 years, $8.5 million total. That's not really expensive. His first year as a starting corner was this year. He's going to be 27 this upcoming season. He was mainly a returner, and he was a great returner, and he still is a great returner. So he could add that to his value. But also the things that you saw in coverage, it makes you feel good about potentially the future with a Keyshawn Nixon. So that's somebody I'm looking at, but I think you got to bring back Ahkello Witherspoon. Spotrac has him at 10.1 million or 10.2 million a year. I'm going to look over here. We'll go right here. And I believe it is 10.2 million a year for Ahkello Witherspoon. They did add his market value. So as you can see here, 10.2 million. I think they got to go with Ahkello Witherspoon. I don't think there's a lot of great corners in this class. I'm not a big Sean Murphy Bunting fan. I think he's okay. So I think for the Rams, they're either going to go with the in-house option here, bring back Ahkello, or they're going to sign a Kendall Fuller and maybe double up with a Keyshawn Nixon. That's how I see it. I think the best fit is Ahkello Witherspoon. The second best fit is Kendall Fuller. That's how I see it. L'Jarius Sneed, I could see them going with the big name, but they're not going to just spend a bunch of money on a big name. The 17 penalties is ridiculous. It's just not even. I don't think you can sign a guy like that. I really don't. So I like him a lot, but he's got to cut down the penalties. I don't think he has it in him. Moving on, we have the safeties here. And now the safeties, as you guys know, I love Antoine Winfield. I would love to grab him. Tampa Bay is going to tag him. We already know that. I don't agree with this, though. I don't think the Patriots are going to tag Kyle Duggar. I don't see that. He could be an option. That's a lot of money. I don't know. I don't really think he makes a lot of sense for what the Rams would be looking for. Same with Cameron Curl, more box safeties, more guys that are going to help in run support. So that's something there. Also, by the way, breaking news, folks, if you are watching this right now, I did just see it come across my screen. Mike McDonald is heading to the Seattle Seahawks as the new head coach. That's horrible news for the Rams because I think McDonald is awesome. But Seahawks were going to get a great coach no matter what. So congratulations to him. But yeah, that's not great news when Seattle gets a great head coach. That probably is going to be better than Pete Carroll. I think he's one of the better coaches in this circuit. So we'll see. Anyway, back to our regular scheduled program. Xavier McKinney, really, really talented player. But do they go with Xavier McKinney? I think he's going to come back to the Giants. And he's 25 years old. So I don't know if the Rams are looking to spend that much money on a safety. We'll see. To me, this is the best fit. Geno Stone potentially going out. Like I said earlier, I have him paired with going out and getting Denard Wilson to be defensive coordinator. So you bring him over from the Ravens. I think that would work. Geno Stone had his best year of his career with Denard Wilson as his defensive backs coach. This is not new. He did the same thing with Marcus Epps in Philly. I think Geno Stone deserves to play a full-time role. He did this year, the 3 safety looks like they're saying here. I see the PFF grade, but really the point is on film, you could see a difference. He had 7 interceptions, excuse me. I think really what it comes down to is this guy is going to be a cover guy. He's not really going to help you in box situations. I think the Rams have enough there, though, that's okay. He's not great against the run, but 2 years, $13 million for a talent like that, a guy that could be a game breaker potentially. I mean, imagine what the Rams could do with 7 extra interceptions on the docket. I mean, that'd be huge. So I like Geno Stone as the fit there. I also like Julian Blackmon. I think Jordan Fuller's still a fit. I think they could bring back Jordan Fuller. I don't think Fuller's the best safety available, but I think it's gotten to the point where safeties aren't getting paid as much unless you're like a top guy. And if you're not one of those guys, then I think it does become affordable to bring back Jordan Fuller. I think it becomes affordable to bring in a Jordan Whitehead. I think it becomes affordable to bring in a Deshaun Elliott or even a Gibson or somebody like that. So Darnell Savage is intriguing. Jeremy Chin is kind of fallen off since 2021, but also intriguing. And same thing with, I'm not really high on Mike Edwards. So anyway, the point I'm making here is that unless you're one of these top guys, you're not getting paid top dollar. It's not happening. I also don't believe they're tagging Cameron Curl. I'll believe it when I see it. So last but not least, the Rams need a kicker. Currently, Brett Maher is a free agent. I don't see them bringing him back. I thought he kicked well down the stretch. I mean, like I said, pretty much automatic inside of 49. He struggled when he got out of 50. Looking at the kickers, you got Kaimi Fairbairn, you got Will Lutz, you got Greg Zuerlein, Nick Folk, Greg Joseph, Brandon McManus, Joey Sly, Randy Bullock, and Chase McLaughlin. Looking at this, the most expensive was Kaimi Fairbairn. When you look at it, the most field goals made was Greg Zuerlein, 35. PAT percentage, you had 100% from McManus, 100% from Bullock, and 100% from McLaughlin. You had 95 with Kaimi Fairbairn. So how does this look? Field goal percentage, Nick Folk was pretty damn good at age 39. Because of that, because he's age 39, this value is going to pretty much remain the same. It's not going to go up. He's not super young. He's not a franchise kicker. Do they bring in somebody like that, played all 17 games? Do they bring in Fairbairn, who 4.4 million, probably goes up to 5 million now? Do they want to do that? I mean, that'd be like Matt Gay. I don't know if they do that. McLaughlin, I mean, do they bring in somebody like that? That's going to be a more expensive deal. To me, I think the best fit is Nick Folk or Greg Zuerlein. And I know a lot of people probably are going to like the Greg Zuerlein pick and maybe not so much the Nick Folk pick, but here's what it comes down to, folks. This is the most important thing. Keeping the cost down, but finding a good kicker. I'm not trying to shell out $7 million on a kicker just because he's young. I don't need him to be young. I just need next year, 2024, do I have a good kicker? And I think if you get Greg Zuerlein, you already know what he can do with the Rams. I think a reunion makes a lot of sense. I could see him reuniting with Bones if they went that route, if Bones left Dallas or whatever, or something like that. I could see him doing something like that. But I think he'd be a really good option. And I think it would be a really good option for Nick Folk. So those would be my two. Kaimi Fairbairn, I'm a big fan of, but now that I think about it, I'm not trying to spend $5 million on a kicker. So I think the best fit is Greg the Leg. And second would be Nick Folk. That's how I would have it. And you could go draft. And that's another thing here. What I have here, what I'm talking about is all free agents. And we talked about coaching. I am not talking about the draft. We will get into the draft. This is just free agency and coaches. So keep that in mind. And it's the best fits according to me. This does not mean it is the best fit without a doubt. It does not mean that it is, 100% going to happen. It doesn't mean that I'm saying it would happen. It doesn't even mean that I'm saying it should happen. I'm saying these are the best fits for each position that they could use an extra player. And that's really what it comes down to. So in conclusion, backup quarterback Carson Wentz, backup running back Zach Moss, wide receiver signing either Odell, Demarcus Robinson, or Kendrick Bourne, tight end signing Adam Troutman, offensive tackle Tyron Smith, guard Kevin Dotson / Robert Hunt, and or Lloyd Cushenberry for center, Blake Cashman at linebacker. Corner is Akella Witherspoon, Kendall Fuller. Safety is Geno Stone and Jordan Fuller. And kicker is Greg Zuerlein or Nick Folk. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. I'm not against bringing back Jordan Fuller or Akella Witherspoon or Kevin Dotson. I like the idea of bringing those guys back and Carson Wentz, but I also think there are guys that they can bring in as well. So that's all I got for you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a long one. Appreciate you hanging out with me. Be sure to, check out, my content on YouTube, Jake Ellenbogen. Also be sure to check out social media at JK Bogan. Follow me on the Bleacher Report app, JK Bogan, and I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys take care, and I'll see you guys soon. Later, folks.